Have you ever felt as if someone was watching you? I'm sure you have felt that feeling. I think everybody must have. But have you ever felt that feeling in your home, when you were sure that you were home alone and the doors were locked? You look around the room, but you can't seem to see anyone there. You go back to whatever you were doing, but that strange feeling of being watched won't go away. Try your best to ignore that feeling. It may save your life, and count yourself lucky you didn't meet the eyes of the woman from the gaps. Tsukima Onna is an urban legend from Japan which gained notoriety on 2chan. The legend goes that this mysterious woman has the ability to appear in impossibly small gaps of a few centimeters or millimeters, in gaps in walls, furniture, pretty much any small gap in the everyday home. Sometimes she wants to play hide and seek with you. Other times she will just stare and your sanity will ebb away. And other times she might grab you and drag you into her world, for it is said that she lives in the gaps that separate our world from other planes of life. The origins of this urban legend date back to the Edo period, which started in 1603 and ended in 1868. A samurai called Negishi Yasumori wrote her story in the late Edo period. In short, the samurai made a collection of strange tales he had heard from all sorts of people from different walks of life, colleagues, the elderly, and friends over a 30-year period. One of the stories he gave the world was the story of the woman from the gaps that we know today. Although the story has changed over the years, it remains relatively the same. I will now read a supposed encounter with the woman from the gaps. Y was a college student, but one day he suddenly stopped coming to class. His friends and classmates were worried about him, and they tried calling him a bunch of times, but he never picked up. So two of his closest friends went over to his place to see how he was doing. The exchange went something like this. E calls out, "Hey, Y, are you alive in there?" as he rang the doorbell. There was no reply. It seemed like the door was locked too. E calls out, "Why are you away from college, man?" O then says to E, "Maybe he went back to his hometown because he was failing." The two of them went to leave, but stopped when the door to Y's apartment opened, and Y came out, saying sorry to the pair of them. They said that Y was usually a really cheerful and funny guy, but when they saw him that day, he looked like a shell of his former self. Something was evidently wrong. He seemed thinner and less energetic. His friends questioned him. "Hey, what's going on with you, man? Everybody is really worried about you." Y replies, "Seriously, guys, I'm fine." E says, "So, you not eating properly or something?" "Who the hell are you, Y's mother?" O jokingly asks. I know what it is. You got dumped. Is that it?" O asks. "No, it's not like that." Y replies. "Well, if it's something embarrassing, then let's talk inside," O says as he barges past Y and walks into his apartment. They noticed that Y's apartment was really messy, and the curtains were drawn, even though it was the middle of the day. E walked over and grabbed the curtains. "Well, come on, man, don't sit here in the dark." O says. "There you go again, being his mum. Don't open those curtains." Y yells at his friend. "I don't want to see her." The two friends started giggling and smirking to one another. They thought their friend had been hiding something from them. So they began searching the room. It wasn't a big place that Y owned, so they quickly found that there wasn't a woman hiding out there. "Guess she must have gone home, huh?" O jokes at him, and then Y replies, "No, she's still here. Look, over there if you really want to see her. But don't stare too long." Y then raised a shaking hand and pointed at the wall. Looks of concern fell over the faces of his friends. One of them asked, "Are you okay, man? Seriously?" "She's there. She lives in there." In the area that Y was pointing to was a bookshelf next to a wardrobe. He asked, "What do you mean?" "There, in the gap," Y replied. Apparently Y was referring to the gap between the bookshelf and the wardrobe. E and O couldn't believe what they were hearing. Had their friend lost his mind? They had to look, though. They had to check it out. So in the darkened room, they leaned forward to see what was in the gap. The gap itself was apparently no wider than 5 centimeters or 2 inches. They peered into it and saw the impossible. There was a woman's eyes there, in that 2-inch gap. They met the eyes of this unknown woman in that gap, and she stared right at them. This is where the story ends, possibly to create a sense of lingering eeriness or to leave it up to the reader's imagination as to what happened next. Other variations involve a man going to the refrigerator late at night to grab a beer and seeing a woman in a 10 centimeter or 5-inch gap. She was between the back of the fridge and the wall. It ended with the guy vowing not to go into the kitchen that late again and questioning who the hell that woman was. So beware of the feeling of being watched. At home, it might just be the woman from the gaps getting ready to pull you into her world. Just to end on a happier note, there is a story out there where a guy sees the woman from the gaps and ends up striking up a bit of a romance with her. He sets about feeding her so she can get back to normal human size. There is also a male version of this urban legend, the Gap Man, which is pretty similar. For a legend that's been around since the 1800s, it makes you wonder if some of the accounts of witnessing these people from the gaps could be true. One night, a man who we will call C was heading home after work on his normal route. He passed by an alley and he heard a commotion. He thought to himself, "What's going on down there?" But he didn't go and investigate. When he woke up the following morning, he put on the TV while he got ready for work. Some tragic local news had been reported. There had been a murder. Stranger still, the murder happened just off of the road. C walked home. C thought to himself, "That's terrible. Is that what I heard last night on the walk home? Whoa, that could have been me. I better be careful." He headed home a different route that night after work and made sure that he finished work before it got really dark out. While he was relaxing at home, he heard the doorbell ring. He went over to check on the monitor. When someone pushed the doorbell, it triggered a camera to reveal the visitor on a screen inside the house, like a Ring doorbell camera. He saw a police officer stood out there. "Sorry to call so late, but I'm an officer." C hurriedly opened the door to the policeman. "Excuse me, but I'm from the Higashi Kawaguchi police station. Are you alone in the house, sir?" "Yeah, I am. Is there something I can help you with?" "Well, I'm just here trying to spread some awareness and ask some questions. I'm not sure if you've heard, but there has been an incident in the local area. It was even featured on the news. So I'm trying to reach out to the residents of the neighborhood to find out if anybody had seen or heard anything." "Ah, you talking about that murder case?" "Well, that's not the way that I would have worded it, sir, but essentially you're right. The culprit hasn't been caught yet. Just wondering if you might have heard or seen anything that might generate a lead for us." "Well, no, not especially, sorry. I don't think I can give you anything to go on." "Not especially, I see. Well, if you have any information, please just give me a call, hey?" As he said that, the police officer wrote down his number on a post-it note and handed it to C. And then he left. A few more days went by, and as C was getting ready for work again with the TV on in the background, he heard an update on the local murder case. He guessed that the officer must have gotten a lead from someone in the neighborhood. C was relieved to hear that there wasn't a murderer walking the streets. He turned to look at the TV to see the face of the killer. He froze when he saw the suspect's face. The relief he felt when he learned the killer was off the streets was washed away in a second. The culprit turned out to be the police officer who visited C's home to ask for information. So the murderer posed as a police officer trying to find out if anyone had seen him on the night of the murder. Had C told the fake officer that he had heard something in the alley while he was walking home, what might have happened to him? Although this is an urban legend, there have been many cases in which criminals have disguised themselves as businessmen, door-to-door salesmen, maintenance workers, etc. This goes on, not just in Japan as well. I guess the lesson to be learned from this legend is, try to be as prepared and as cautious as possible, for when a stranger comes to your door, things might not always be what they seem. This is an urban legend that I hadn't ever heard of before. I hope it's one you haven't heard of either. At Natsuko's high school, urban legends like human-faced dogs and Hanako-san of the toilet were really popular. Natsuko wasn't much of a fan though. She thought that the urban legends she heard her friends spread around the school were nonsense. One summer afternoon, Natsuko's mother asked her to put away some folded laundry on her brother's bed. He was a year younger than her, and he went to the same school as Natsuko. She dumped his laundry on the bed, and as she turned to leave, she noticed something. There was a floppy disk on his desk by the PC marked Rumours. She decided to grab it since her brother was out. She put the floppy disk into her computer and opened the document which was saved there. The rumors that had been spread all over the school were all typed up there. She found a new groundless rumor that said if you stared at a TV tuned to a static channel and then watched that white noise for 30 minutes, you would lose your mind. Well, Natsuko had had just about enough of these stupid rumors, so she decided to play a prank on her brother by adding a rumor of her own to the file. Natsuko's rumor, or urban legend, went a little like this. One dark night I was walking home and I stopped in my tracks when I heard the sound of someone calling. They were calling out to me, asking me something. The voice was saying, "Come and play with me." I was walking close to the park, and although it was dark, I could make out a figure sat on one of the swings beneath the moonlight. A shiver raced up my spine because I had heard about him before. His name is Masao. Natsuko paused and thought about that name. And then she said to herself, "Masao is too ordinary. Let's call him Makio. If you answer the call of Makio and go and join him in a dark playground at night, you'll never be seen again. He will take you away. So beware." She smiled smugly at the legend she had just created, quickly saved the document, ejected the floppy disk, and then returned it to her brother's desk. The following day at school, rumors about Makio began to spread around the classrooms of their high school. Natsuko thinks that her brother has told his friends about her made-up story, and she goes over to him during lunch break to question him. He said that it wasn't him who spread the rumor. He claimed to have only just heard it from a classmate. She didn't know if she could believe him. She shrugged it off for the time being. Later after class, she was in the bookstore trying to decide which magazine to buy. A group of kids came into the store talking about Makio, even adding new details to the story she created. One of them even said that they had a friend who had a close encounter with Makio. That friend was almost taken away, apparently. She left the bookstore, but then out on the streets, she overheard an adult couple talking about a missing student from a cram school. Then when she saw her friends later, they were talking about it too. When Natsuko tried to explain and tell them that she was the one who made up the urban legend and Makio, her friends told her to stop lying. They didn't believe her. Everyone was talking about it, and her friends just thought that Natsuko wanted the credit. She got livid with them, as they believed that Makio was real. She told them that this Makio never even existed in the first place. That evening, an article was printed in the local paper. A high school student had gone missing on the way home from a cram school. Natsuko's brother didn't come home that night either. Natsuko was scared, so she went upstairs into her brother's bedroom. Something drew her to the floppy disk lying on his desk. She picked it up and took it back into her bedroom and put the floppy disk into her computer. To her surprise, she found that there were several more lines added to her fictitious urban legend. The gist of those lines was as follows. You should never go on the swings if Makio's there. Makio's true identity seems to be that of a missing high school student, who apparently and tragically took his own life after being forced to attend a cram school. Makio has black eyes, but when he is about to get you, his eyes turn white. The reason Makio calls out to kids his age is because in death he became even more lonelier than he was in life. If you see a swing swinging by itself in a playground, it indicates Makio is there. Everyone knows about Makio. Makio's legend will be spread through the entire country. Natsuko thought, what the hell is all of this? As she finished reading the contents of the Word document. Meanwhile, her mother called the cram school that her brother was attending and was told that her son had already left for home 30 minutes ago. Her mother then starts to become deeply concerned for her son and even mentions the name Makio. Natsuko was completely shocked. She ran out of the house while shouting to her mother, I'll go and find him. And she sets off into the dark night in search of her brother, in the hope that she could put an end to the rumors of Makio. She ran past the park near her home, but then spun around and stopped. She saw one of the swings swinging by itself, and beneath it she was certain she could see her brother's unique school bag. She ran over to it, stooped to pick it up, and when she looked up, she was met with the eyes of her own creation. Black eyes that became white. Makio extended an arm out to Natsuko and said, Hi sis, won't you play with me? Natsuko was never seen again. The next day at school, a new rumor began to spread. Did you hear about the other kid who went missing? I heard that Makio got her as well. Did you hear the new rumor? No, what's that? Rumor has it that Makio now has an accomplice. If you ever see the swing in a park swing by itself and a girl stood next to it, watch out. They say her name's Natsuko. This is an urban legend from Shibuya. Keep this one in mind if you go there. As a young woman was heading home from work, walking the streets of Shibuya one night, she heard a voice coming from behind her. Do you have any piercings? The mysterious voice asked. The woman turned around to be confronted by another woman stood before her with her head hung down, aimed at her feet. The first thought that the woman walking in Shibuya thought was, Hey, what's the matter with you? Take a look. You can see that I have my ears pierced. But for the sake of being nice to a stranger, and not coming across as sarcastic, she replied, Yeah, I do. The moment she answered, the other woman lunged at her and bit her right ear. It was bitten with such a strong force that her earlobe was ripped right off, as well as the earring. Kind of like the legend of Kuchisaki Onna, which I cover in another video, it seems like answering her question that provokes the attack. The legend goes that when the ear-biting woman got her ears pierced, she lost her sight, and her ears got infected. It is thought that these two things were not related, but yet in the woman's mind, they were. They caused her to go insane. It is said that she targets women walking the streets of Shibuya. Apparently, if you are wearing a certain type of perfume, you can survive this encounter. However, the author of this urban legend has neglected to share it with us. At the time this urban legend spread, apparently high school girls would wear various scents just to up their odds of survival. I found this urban legend online while trying to find some new ones that, you might not have heard before. It's a pretty interesting one. This is a story I heard from one of my friends back when I was at school, and it goes like this. Kana was a very active child. She loved playing outside. For one of her birthdays, she received a doll from her aunt. The doll stood at 30 centimeters tall, and it looked like a classic French doll. She had cute blue eyes and a very pretty face. Kana loved her doll so much that she would even take it outside to play with her, and she was very proud to show it off to her friends. She would sit the doll on a park bench so that the doll could watch her and her friends play. And she would even lay the doll down when they were playing doctors. The doll was more often than not the girl's patient. About 2 weeks after Kana received the doll, her friends noticed something different about it when they saw her in the park. They were surprised to see that the doll was missing an eye. "Hey, what happened to the doll's eye?" a friend asked her. "Oh, I cut it out. Yeah, the eye's in a drawer at home," Kana replied with a smile. Her friends knew that she had a bit of a habit to break things. She would also modify things like her pencil case, to give it her own style. So they didn't really pay much mind, they just continued playing together in the park. A couple of days went by, and her friends realized that they hadn't seen Kana for a while. They started to worry about her. A friend went to her family home. She wanted to invite her down to the park to play, but as soon as she laid eyes on Kana, she knew she wasn't in a fit state to come out and play. One of Kana's eyes was red and swollen. She looked like a pale ghost too, specifically the lady Oyuwa from Yotsuya Kaidan. "Hi, Jay here. Oyuwa-san is an onryo, a vengeful spirit. Is probably Japan's most famous ghost. Appearance-wise, she's very pale. She has a damaged eye. I could go into this legend in the next video, but for now, back to the story." "Kana, what happened to your eye?" her friend asked. "I don't know, my eye's just been really hurting for the last couple of days. My mom took me to the hospital. I have a sty, and I think it got infected or something. I hope it gets better soon." About a week later, Kana came to play in the park with her friends. Kana was wearing an eye patch, and her friends were sad to see her like that. But that wasn't what shocked them the most. The doll in her arms was now missing both eyes. Her friends said that seeing Kana looking so pale, cradling that eyeless doll, was very unnerving. One said that they even got the chills even though it was a warm summer's day. After that day, Kana stopped coming to the park again. Her friend was concerned for Kana, so she went to her home to check on her again. Kana's mother came to the door. She said that Kana was in the hospital and was going to have surgery on both eyes. She wouldn't be able to come out and play for a long time. Kana had been in pain for a long time, and her sight was rapidly decreasing. The hospital staff said that if Kana's eyes were left untreated, then she could potentially go blind. All of Kana's friends came to visit her in the hospital. They saw her lying in bed with gauze covering her eyes. It was a sad and, frankly, scary sight. The surgery ended up being a success, and after about a month, Kana was back to her usual self. However, whenever she played with her friends, they realized that she was still in some discomfort with her eyes. One of her friends noticed this and said, "Kana, your eyes still hurt? Maybe they aren't healing properly because of what you did to your doll." Kana thought about that for the rest of the day, and when she got home, she took out the doll's eyes from her desk drawer. She took them to her mother and asked her to help reattach them. Her mother obliged and did a really good job of reattaching them. Kana hugged her doll and spoke to it. "I'm really sorry for taking your eyes away. I'm so sorry." After that day, Kana didn't feel any pain in her eyes again. Although the cause and effect relationship between the doll and Kana is unclear, I think that this urban legend is supposed to teach you that if you treat things poorly, they may have a way to return the favor.